Well, I thought we'll just have a bit of a chat about the technical sessions and how this thing got started, and from you a little bit about we've heard the interviews with a range of different sort of artists and producers. So I just want to hear from you a little bit about what it's about for you, why you put it together, and maybe what's next for it.
There was a lot of, I guess, different ideas that kind of converged as that formed the technical sessions. Part of was I was going out quite regularly on a Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday night with a couple of beers and sitting in the studio with the Antiform boys or different guys in their studios, and you were basically talking gear and production side of stuff. And I always thought that the resource that was there, the information that was just being shared about, would be of quite benefit to the musicians, producers on the whole. So it was the idea of having a camera up in the corner and a kind of a fly on the wall kind of I guess discussion on production techniques. Part of it was always my desire. I'm always trying to learn new bits and pieces and stuff as well, and it's getting better now that obviously with things like YouTube there's about 1,000,001 videos now on how to produce a electro bass line. But I thought it'd be nice to hear some Kiwi accents on there and see some Kiwi people, and a lot of what you see is very it's still gear orientated, but a lot of the stuff you'll see online is actually basically adverts for equipment from equipment manufacturers, how it works, what you can do, but they're still essentially trying to sell a concept behind it. I'm really interested in how you take that equipment and use it and apply it to specific, because you take the same bit of equipment and 10 people are going to use it 10 completely different ways. And you don't find that till you actually start talking to somebody about it. So that was part as well. Something I've now done a few of them that I've realised has become more and more prominent is just the lack of documentation that there is in New Zealand for a lot of our great artists, electronica artists. That we've got guys now who are releasing tracks around the world and are touring around the world, but a lot of people wouldn't know who they are. Obviously...
Is that a disinterest from the media, or that... Because, if you... something I've noticed as well, you search on YouTube for New Zealand artists, and there's very few videos, not many interviews, and...
I don't know. There are the guys who cross over, and they kind of push, and then that's where you get your shapeshifters and your Concord Dawns to a certain extent, who have done that as well. But there's also, Simon Flower was a great example. Those guys lived over in Germany. He's releasing tracks on some of for his scene, the biggest labels that there are. But most, I don't know. It doesn't get. I think electronic music is still for the mainstream, although it's now crawling in absolutely everywhere. I think it's still, for a long time, it was perceived as this hedonistic drug culture that happened on the weekends, and the music was just something that went alongside of it. There wasn't so much of the fact that it was a valid creative discipline, process, whatever you want to call it, style of music. And but you see, it's the same thing. I guess again, you've got pop music, then you've got everything else. It's not represented in the New Zealand mainstream in the same way that country and western or classical or a lot of other styles of music are. Despite the fact now that you'll hear it at the halftime at every rugby game, in the adverts, everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. So it's nice to kind of maybe find out some of the people behind the stuff. That's actually what's going on.
Right.
So that was it. But ultimately, it's just a great excuse for me to line people up that I want to ask questions about and go quiz them about it. I knew the Antiform boys. I had never really properly met Simon, but always kind of wanted to. So it was a great opportunity to sit him to have a talk. Same with Tim. So I've just got a list of people that I'll be hitting people up. It's something that the information and also the documentation of the culture for New Zealand is quite important. Otherwise it will just disappear in the same way that like the car crash sets and those sort of things as well. There was a very, very small culture, but try and find any information about this whole synth pop kind of scene we actually had in New Zealand.
Well, that's the thing. When we did the Music Machines event, we're researching the event and trying to find out about car crash set and a lot of this scene, and it's still just in people's heads. It's not particularly written down, and it's certainly not documented and available.
Yeah.
So
I
because
think-
this is kind of, it's got that, I guess there is that production technical sessions
Yeah.
angle, but
Well,
a
it
lot
was-
of the interviews are kind of a lot more personal than.
I think it was that thing that, again, the technical side of it, I've realised, is just the common language that we all share. You know, that we're all working in these studios and producing, but we've all still got our own individual stories and how we actually got to those. You know, Charlie was a great example of that, of him living over in Waiheke and his process to why he's producing that kind of music. My story is different from Greg, from Tim's, from everybody's. So that's the other side of it as well. It's just finding these the backstories of these people who are producing it and capturing it and documenting it. So in 10, 20 years' time, I don't know what the electronic music scene is going to look like, but it'd be nice to think that there's something down there, so there's actually kind of a history that's been taken.
Yeah.
You know? Rather than some of these guys, if something else becomes popular and they just fade away and never hear about them again, which I think would be a shame. The whole concept of new media to me has always been quite interesting as well, this idea that it doesn't have to be, you can watch it when you want, you can get quite specialised and focused on it, and you can provide there was a big thing with these interviews, is I was seeing interviews with some of these guys that I wanted to find out more about, but you just never get the amount of information out of them in 5 minutes between ad breaks that you could ever do by sitting down and just letting them talk for a while. So that's hence the format of the technical sessions. I still cut it down into 10 minutes because it's a YouTube limit, but also I think it's a block for people to kind of absorb every week or every part week. But you can actually have, for people who are interested, they can sit down and watch online and an hour, 2 hours of somebody talking about what they
It's
do.
amazing, actually. It's
Yeah.
just incredible. Like, it's the kind of thing you've waited for years to.
Yeah, and you could never do it through TV. They just wouldn't give you the time. I mean, I've approached a lot of years ago. I approached some of the big channels, and they're like, really, I was like, hey, I want to do a show basically focusing on the electronic culture, the club culture, and everything like that, but not doing the obvious and just how you going, what colour underwear you're wearing, and everything like that. And it was like, well, it's really interesting, but we're just not quite sure how that translates into a show that we can put in between Ouch My Balls and the latest, Britney Spears music video kind of thing. There's many projects that I've had for many years, and it's just slowly getting.
Is there going to be a point where you're going to take on some interns to actually help you with all this stuff? Because
I've got one kind of already who happened also. My partner I live with, she's helping out a hell of a lot. But yeah, I mean, if I can, it's going to be like all these things. It's going to be a case of just figuring out a way as if I can. I want to pay people for their time, obviously, and I still have to pay rent. So, if we can work a way where we can do that as well, then yeah, I mean, there's so much you could do. And the reality is which for what we're doing here, from all the tutorials and everything, it's I mean, we're in New Zealand, but the tutorial on how to record a vocal is applicable worldwide, basically. So we'll see. I mean, my goal, I'd love to just travel around the world and interview artists all the time, but there's steps. We'll see where
there's only so many things you can do in a week.
Yes. So we'll see. I mean, I've got my timeline kind of written out as to where I'd like to be in a year and 2 years and 3 years, and we'll see how we get towards there.